All Might, Nezu, Aizawa. What can I help you fine gentlemen out with? Izuku Midoriya. I'm sorry, but in order for us to keep our school's funds, we'll have to permanently remove you from UA. What? Yeah. It's because of what you did to Ida. I'm sorry, but they threatened to sue us and... Well... Yeah. We can no longer have you. Aizawa, are you just gonna let this happen? I'm sorry, kid. I have no choice. Huh? What's All Might doing here? I'm here to escort you out, kid. Oh. When do I have to get out? Right now. Deku would smile. As he'd say, 3 days. Huh? 3 days. No food. No water. You know what I did? As Deku would open his hand as they could see a bottle of pills. Only pills. For 3 days. You know how that feels? Do any of you know how I feel? To be completely heartbroken. To let darkness consume you. I had to drink my way out of it. It's crazy, isn't it? As Deku's demon mark would start to grow all over his body. As Meliodas could sense this, he would start to calm it down. As the mark would start to fade. As Deku would say, and now you guys are just gonna kick me out like that? He gets to cheat with my girlfriend. That was my girl. She was my everything. I was gonna buy her a diamond ring. No, I wasn't gonna buy it for her. I already bought it. And she just goes and betrays me. And because they threatened to sue y'all, you're throwing me out instead of him. Me. As All Might, Nezu, and Aizawa would start to get a little nervous. As Deku smiled. It was fading. It was starting to turn into a depressed look. You're throwing me out. I don't deserve this, you know. I didn't deserve any of the things I got. But look at this, they're happening. Isn't that right? As Deku would look down at the ground. This is what you wanted. This was your plan. Don't worry. I'm gonna kill you soon enough. As Meliodas would hear this, as he's been training Deku for the last 3 days. Deku would say, alright, but if I leave, I'm taking my sister with me. Well, that's really up to her, but doesn't matter. It's not like y'all can do anything to stop it. Unless you want to fight me, that is. As they'd look at Deku and say, we don't want it to come to that. And you can take your sister if she decides to go with you. As Deku would hiccup and say, alright. As his smile would come back onto his face. As they could see that he's completely wasted. As Deku would gather his bags. And he'd stumbly walk out the door. As he'd go to Izumi and say, Izumi, Izuku? Where have you been? Oh, I've been in my room. is she could also see that Izuku was completely wasted. Are, are you drunk? Not only drunk, but I'm high too. Izumi would look at Deku's bad condition. Are you alright? Not at all. They're kicking me out of UA. What? What'd you say? Yeah, Ida's parents. I kinda broke his nose. They're threatening to sue UA for everything they have just 'cause of that. So, I kinda gotta, leave, and I wanted to see if you would like to come with me. As Izumi would look at him and say, I can't do that. As Deku would look sad again. Oh, wait, what? You can't do that. What are you talking about, Izumi? Of course you can. I can't. I'm so sorry. Deku, I have to become a hero. This is my dream. Your dream. Oh, yeah. That's right. This Deku would hug her and say, well, guess I'll be leaving then. As he'd have a few tears in his eyes. As he'd walk out of the school, everybody would be looking at him. Mostly people would be sad to see him go, saying that, well, it was Ida and Uraraka's fault for this whole mess. As Deku would turn back and look at the school one more time, as he'd say, it was nice while it lasted. As he walked to his mom's house, as he'd open the door, Mom, I'm home. As Deku would walk in, you see that the place was completely trashed. As he'd grow worried. Mom! As Deku could hear men whispering. Is that her kid? Yeah, I think so. As Deku would walk into a room where he could see his mother, tied up. Her breasts are out. Her clothes, her complete bottom half is ripped off. As she's bleeding. She looks to be, knocked out. Or even worse. As the men would look at the young Izuku, as they'd say, what do we have here? Looks like you're the whore's kid, aren't you? What'd you say? You're the whore's kid. Yeah, we just fucked the shit out of her. She did pretty well. Well, that is, when she wasn't fighting back. Look at her. Almost dead. What? Oh, yeah. We were thinking about killing the bitch, but we really didn't know what to do. So, kind of just, raped her. But, we'll probably have to end up killing you, because, you're a witness. And we can't have that. As a man would pull out a knife. As one of the men would rush towards Deku. But, in an instant, Deku, he'd transform. His demon mark, it would come onto his head. And he became serious. As the man would finally get to Deku. As Deku would look at him, directly in his eyes. The man, he'd freeze in his tracks and say, what are you? As Deku would give him a smile. I'm a demon. As he shoved his hand straight through his throat, killing the man almost instantly. Before the man died, he gagged on his blood, choking. As Deku smiled at his face as he spit on the man and kicked him in the face, sending him off of his, hand. As Deku looked at the other man, as Deku smiled and walked towards a desk, as he'd set up his phone, as the man would say, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I'm gonna record this ass whooping, and I'm gonna show it to my mom." As Deku would rush at the man, as he'd grab him by the collar and punch him square in the face. As before the man could go flying, Deku would grab him by the back of the head and knee him in the face repeatedly until the man's face was completely bloody. As Deku would smile at the man, as he'd say, Oh, we're not done here." As Deku would repeatedly slam the man's head onto the ground, as he'd repeatedly say, "Why'd you come into my house, huh?" As he'd just keep saying it and saying it and saying it, until the man would crack and say, We just wanted to rob you. We didn't mean to hurt her. We nothing. Shut up. The way you guys were talking, you obviously meant to hurt her. So, how should we deal with this?" As Deku would bring the man's head closer to the camera. I think I should torture you." As Deku's darkness would start to grow more than it should, Meliodas would see this, and he'd smile. "He's one sick bastard now, isn't he?" As Deku would tie the man up right next to his mom, who was starting to regain consciousness. "Izuku, is that you?" As she'd look to her side and she'd see the man's bloody face, as she'd jump back, but the rope that she was tied to would, kind of restrict her movements. As Deku would smile and say, "Oh, I'm torturing him. You want to join in?" As Deku would cut her free. What? Torturing?" "Yeah, for what he did to you." As Deku would spit on the man. As Inko could see the fear in the man's eyes. And being the good person she is, she'd say, Deku, let him go. I'm fine, just let the both of them go." "Oh, it's a bit late for that." As he'd flick his, hand towards the man that he already killed. As Inko would see this, and she'd say, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. You killed him." "Yeah, I did. I won't let anybody harm my mother." As Deku would say, "Now, please go get on some clothing. I really don't want to see you like that." As Inko would look at her, body, as she'd cover up, seeing that, she was naked. And she'd run and go put on some clothes. As 5 minutes later, she'd come back. As she'd say, "All right, Deku, just untie him." "I can't do that." "What? Why not?" "Because he has to pay what you did for what he did to you." As Deku would kick him in the face repeatedly, as the man would start to spit up blood and teeth. As Deku would say, "Oh, I have a thing. Something that'll really make this damn sick bastard pay." As Deku would head off towards the kitchen, as he'd get a cup and a knife. He'd fill the cup up with the water, and he'd take a sip. That's some delightful water. As Deku would come into the room, as his mom would see the knife. "What are you gonna do with that?" As Deku would place the cup of water down, as he'd grab the man's face, as he'd open his mouth, as Deku would damn near rip his tongue out of his mouth. As he'd say, "I'm gonna cut a piece of his tongue, and I'm gonna put it in that water." And she'd say, "What? No, don't do that." As before she could stop him, Ah! The man would scream out in pain. What? Or, well, he would say why, but he couldn't really talk, seeing that, well, his tongue isn't in his mouth anymore. Deku would put the tongue in water as Deku would look at the man and say, which body part next? As Deku would be rubbing the knife up against the man's face. As he'd say, oh, I know, as he'd stick the knife directly in the man's eye, ripping it out in one pull, as the man would scream out again. You're one sick kid. As Deku'd say, oh yeah, I know I'm sick. Absolutely sick. Even sicker than you two bozos, but what does that matter? As Inko would notice, Deku's mark. It's all around his body. It looks like this, but he has complete consciousness. He isn't exactly in a dazed state. This Deku would look in the man's, well, one good eye. As he'd say, should I take the other eye? Nah, I know what I'll do. Inko would say, no, Deku, please, that's enough. Oh no, it's not enough. I mean, I'm gonna end up killing the both of them anyways. Even if you did let them go. I was gonna kill them to begin with. What's wrong with you? A lot of things. You know, I just got kicked out of UA. Wait, what? Yeah. I wanted to take Izumi with me, but she said it was her dream. And I didn't really want to ruin that, so I left her there. They kicked you. Why'd they kick you out? 'Cause I beat up Tinya. He kissed Uraraka. Wait, she cheated on you? Yeah, she did. And Ida's parents were gonna sue the school because, well, I nearly broke his nose. I only hit him once, but guess that did enough damage. And, well, they were gonna sue the school for everything they had. And the school didn't want that to happen, so they decided to kick me out. As Inko would frown as she'd look at Deku, as she'd hug him. Inko would embrace Deku as the man would be screaming out in agony. But he'd be ignored because, well, yeah, they don't really care about that nigga. But, yeah. Inko would be embracing Deku in motherly love as Deku would shed a few tears. But he'd vow to himself he wouldn't cry ever again unless there was something that really called for crying. As Deku would, well, release his mother from, well, her hug. As Deku would say, well, guess I'll get back to torturing now. Wait, no! As Deku, As Deku would cut off the man's nose next. As he'd put that in the jar, along with the man's eye, tongue, and, well, now his nose. But, yeah. After Deku cut off his nose, the man would pass out due to all of the pain. As the video would have captured all of this. As well, Deku would have eventually decided to kill the man after cutting off multiple limbs of his body. Deku would have then told his mom that he's decided to... Alright, I'm back. But, yeah. Deku would have killed the man, as he'd have looked at his mother and said, I've decided that I'm going to kill my father. Wait, what? The Demon King? I can't let you do that. He's gonna kill you. And then I'll just have Izumi. I can't let you do that. Sorry, but this is the only way. The only way to do what, Izuku? To free myself from the curse. Plus, Meliodas told me a little something. Meliodas? Yeah, my former self. He told me that my father holds the 10 Commandments. The Commandments? Yeah. They're basically things that'll transform me into the next Demon King once I kill him. And I'll gain, immeasurable amounts of power. And once I gain this power, I'll be unstoppable. I could do anything I want. I could be on the hero side, or I could be on the villain side. Either one doesn't really matter to me. As Inko would sweat drop, as she'd say. But what if you die? I won't die. I promise. Here, I'll even gather a team of 3. Me and 3 other people. Why not? If it'll make you happy. As Inko would just smile at him and say, fine. Just promise me. Promise you? Promise you what? That you'll come back safe. You'll come back to me and Izumi. I promise. As Deku would, hug his mother and then pick up his bags and leave. As Inko would think to herself, he left his phone. I wonder. Let's go through it, shall we? As Inko would get a little bit of a devilish smile on her face as she'd see that Deku was recording. As she'd stop the recording, as she'd play it back, as she would see the way that Deku killed the first man in cold blood after he saw what the men had did to her and said to him. As she'd smile and say, that's my baby. As Deku would be walking off the porch, as Inko would rush out after him and she'd say, hey, you forgot your phone. As she'd toss it to him, as Deku would smile and say, oh, thanks. As he'd grow dark wings as he'd fly off. As Deku would think to himself, enough with this goody-goody act. It's time to get down to business. Meliodas. I'll put your teachings to good use. Yeah, you better. Didn't want to waste my time on you anyway. But it'd make me happy to see you beat the shit out of my old man. Deku'd smile. So, you want him dead too? Yeah, I do. You aren't the only one that suffered a heartbreak. Plus, he killed all of my friends. Deku'd say, well, I'll make sure I get revenge in all of their names as well. As Deku would dart down to the, local prison as he'd land. As he sensed a pretty strong power. What's this? This power matches 10% of me. 10%? That's pretty strong in this world. It could probably rival, I don't know, one of the 3 heroes, top 3. Maybe Endeavor. That's interesting. As Deku would look at the guards as he'd say, hey, who's the strongest person in this, prison? As the guards would say, oh, that bitch? Yeah, she's pretty dangerous. I wouldn't recommend you go, talking to her. Take me to her, would you? No, why would we do that? We don't even know who you are. As Deku would release some of his ki, as they'd fall to the ground, seeing that this was immense killing intent. As Deku would say, now, take me to them. As the guards would say, oh, okay. As he'd get Deku, or they'd take Deku to, well, the cell, the locked down, secure cell that the prisoner was in. As they'd open the door and say, hey, 10, you have a prisoner. 10. Yeah, that's her code name. That's interesting. This Deku would walk in. Huh? Who are you? This Deku would see a girl. She'd look like this. This Deku would say, you don't look strong at all. Show me something. As the girl would narrow her eyes at Deku. As before Deku could say another word, a bolt of lightning would appear behind him. As it'd be rushing at Deku's head with the intent to kill him. As Deku would take the bolt to the back of the head. As he'd say, what was that? And he'd start to scratch his head. What? How's he not dead? As Deku would say, is that your attack? As the girl would say, what are you? Oh, I'm a demon. You have a problem with that? No, not at all. I mean, I'm a prisoner, so, I guess I wouldn't really be one to judge another. So, why are you here? I want to recruit you. You want to recruit me? Yeah, for my team. What team? Well, we still need 2 other people, but you're gonna help me kill my father. Your father? Yeah, the Demon King. What? Yeah, the Demon King. Heard of him? Yeah, but I thought he was a myth. Nah, he's no myth. The old bastard plans to ruin my love life, and possibly even kill me. He wants me to become some ultimate form of destruction, as Meliodas would put it. Meliodas? Don't worry about him. But, yeah. He basically wants me to lose, well, all of my feelings and just become, what's the word? A calamity god. Hint, hint. Maybe that's my next video, who knows. But, yeah. Deku would look at her as she'd look at Deku and say, so you're really that strong? As Deku would say, what, you don't believe me? As he'd look directly at her, and he'd blink his eyes. As that would send a powerful force at the girl. As she'd be slammed into the wall, her head would hit the back of it, and she'd damn near be knocked out. As Deku would smile and he'd say, alright, now that you're dazed, I guess you'll be coming with me, right? As the girl would look up, as she'd have a slight smile on her face, as she was still a little bit nervous, but she said yes. As Deku would say, alright then, as he'd pick the girl up, seeing that, well, she wasn't able to walk, and he'd carry her out bridal style. She'd have a blush on her face, and the guards would be absolutely surprised that he was able to get her, or even beat her, seeing that they couldn't even lay a finger on her, or they'd die. Shit, bitch strong as fuck. But, yeah. Deku would leave the prison, as he'd say, we're gonna rest for a few days, and I'm also gonna help train you. Well, not me. One of my clones will help train you. Clones? Yeah, as Deku would begin to fly into the air, as he'd summon one of his clones that Meliodas taught him how to use. As Deku wouldn't need to use the Lost Vein to summon his clones, he could just summon them at will. As he'd say, you're gonna help me train her, or you'll train her for me. Huh, but she's not that strong. As the young girl would frown at the statement made by this clone, as Deku would smile and he'd say, I know, but you still have to train her because she's gonna be a part of my team. Plus, she's really strong. Compared to us, she's literally nothing. Well, we're demons, so that can't count. As the clone would say, you're right. As he'd say, so when do you want me to start training her? Once we land. Alright. Will do, boss. As the clone would poof away. And Deku would say, we have about 30 minutes before we land. You'll be training with my clone while I go out looking for our next, recruit, so I say. Oh, and by the way, what's your name? Oh, me? Yeah, who else would I be talking to? My name's Kira. Kira, huh? Well, Kira, as I said before, I'm Deku, or you can call me Izuku Midoriya. Either one, really. But, welcome to my team. As 30 minutes would go by and Deku would land, as it'd be out in the open field. As he'd put Kira down and he'd summon one of his clones, as he'd say, alright, train her, would ya? By the time I get back, she better be at least, 80% of my power. What? 80? I don't even know if that's possible. Well, it's not. She won't literally ever catch up to me, because when she does hit 80%, I'd have trained way more. So she'll probably only be at about 40, but that's strong enough to fight that bastard. Plus, I'll be giving her a power up, so she will be about at my level. Well then, alrighty. As the clone would begin to train young Kira, as Deku would fly off. We now go to Kira, who's training. You ready? Yeah, I am. As the clone would say, alright, we're gonna work on your combat skills. So, show me what you got. As the clone would take a fighting stance and it would rush at Kira at blinding speeds, as it'd sweep her legs and she'd fall to the ground, but she'd get back up and she'd throw a kick at the clone, but the clone block it and it'd send a immense power. And I do mean power. This power is, I don't even know how to explain that shit in words. But you know what? Never mind. Let's just say he sent an extremely powerful punch to her stomach, making her cough up a lot of blood. As Kira would fall to the ground and say, what the hell? As the clone would say, oops, my bad. I forgot you're still kind of weak. As this would piss Kira off, as she'd rush at the clone, hitting him in the face, as she'd grab his head and knee him in the stomach, sending him flying. As the clone would have a smile on his face and say, that's nice. As he'd get up and he'd teleport right behind her. As he'd say, I could have killed you. As his hand would have slightly pushed up against her back, making it bleed. As Kira would be paralyzed for a second. Then she would jump back, saying that, the clone was still behind her. Or she'd jump forward, saying that the clone was behind her. And she'd turn around and say, you bastard. Well, I've seen what you got for today, and, well, to be honest, you need a lot of work if you want to beat his father. Huh? Yeah. His father's a powerhouse. What do you mean? Deku, right now, he's not strong enough to beat him. But if he abandons all of his emotions, and he becomes like the former Meliodas, who was an absolute form of destruction, I guarantee you, he'll be able to kill his father with little difficulty. She'd say, so he's really that strong? Yeah, Kira, he is. As we now go to Meliodas, who's at a taco shop. What should I get? As Deku decided to get the ultimate Nacho Pack Supreme Deluxe, Grande style. As the chef would say, alright, coming right up. As Deku'd pay the man as he'd go to sit down. There would be a man to walk into the taco shop. As he'd ordered the same exact thing as Deku. As he'd sense a presence, or Deku would sense a presence. A presence that, well, could have made him, well, Kira scared. As Deku turned around to see a man. A black-haired man. As Deku would say, who are you? As the man would say, don't worry about it. As Deku would say, would you like to join my team? Team? For what? To fight my father. Now, why would I want to fight somebody as weak as that? I only have my strength to fight people strong. Strong opponents make me happy. Do you say so? Let's have a battle then. And if I can knock you out, then, well, you'll join my team. But if you beat me, I'll never speak to you again. Deal? Why not? As the man would walk outside along with Deku. As Deku would smile at the man and say, begin. As the man would rush towards Deku, as he'd throw a punch, but Deku would vanish. As he'd appear behind the man, as he'd chop him directly in the neck. And he'd say, well, you're stronger than Kira, that's for sure. As Deku could still sense the man's power. As Deku'd say, you could probably go toe-to-toe with All Might. Isn't that something? He'd take the man back with him. As along the way he'd see bandits robbing an old woman. But these were no ordinary bandits. These bandits, they were demons. As Deku would be shocked. The hell? And why are they robbing her? As Deku would get a closer look. They're kids. And it looks like they're homeless. As Deku would drop down as he hit all three of them on the head with his hand. Hey, what the hell are you guys doing? Mind your own business. I mean, this is kind of my business now. Seeing that I have to protect the weak and all. Shut up. And let us take her purse. We need the money to eat. As Deku would take out his wallet and, well, give them $5,000. As he'd say, here, take this. As the kids would walk off. As before they could get far. Deku would smile and say, oh, so that's your true form. As he'd throw a ball of darkness towards them. As it would explode, killing all three of them. As they change back into their original forms. It would be two, probably 11-foot tall demons. As Deku would say, my father must have sent you to this world to spy on me. Isn't that crazy? As Deku would take the man and he'd pick up the old woman's purse and give it back to her and say, well, I'll be going now. As the woman would be scared after what she just saw. As Deku would return back to, where his clone was training Kira. As he dropped the man off and say, this is our new recruit. I don't know his name, but he'll wake up soon enough to tell us. As the man would wake up right as Deku said that and say, what the hell? What happened? Oh, I knocked you out. You knocked me out. How? Oh, 'cause I'm stronger than you. As the man would say, you're stronger than me? Huh, that's interesting. Tell me, did I go out fighting? No, not really. I disappeared and chopped you in the neck. Damn, the man would think to himself, this has never happened to me before. So what? Well, you have to join my team now. That's what we agreed to. Is that so? The man would narrow his eyes at Deku as he'd send a punch his way. Deku would block it with his pinky finger as he'd kick the man in the side, sending him into a tree. As the man would get up, he'd have blood coming out of his mouth. Damn it! As Deku would say, don't ever try that again. Next time I'll knock you out. Or maybe kill you. Whichever one is better. I don't like being attacked. Well, unless we're sparring. But if you do attack me out of nowhere, I'll treat it like a real fight. And I'll try to kill you. Is that understood? As the man would slowly nod his head. As Deku would walk off, saying, hey, don't stop. Continue training her. Oh, yeah, that's right. In the meantime, I sense something. Ooh, my victim. I'm gonna kill this dumb bastard. As Deku instantly vanishes and he reappears, he sees at least 20 men jumping a kid. A kid that looks like this. Hold on. Alright, I'm back. But this is what the young boy would look like. As Deku would see him getting jumped, as he'd get pissed off. As he'd rush at the men. And in cold blood, he'd kill all of them. As Deku would pick the young boy up by his head, and he'd look at him. You seem pretty strong. What's your power? Huh? Are you gonna beat me up too? No, I'm not. Well, not if you don't tell me your power, that is. Or your quirk. Sorry. It's come on, spit it out, kid. Come on. I'm running low on patience. It's fairy magic. Fairy magic. Or better yet, fairy equipment. Fairy equipment. Equipment. That's definitely something. So, what is it? Basically, I can summon a fairy, and that fairy can give me any, equipment that has to do with the power I want. What are you talking about? Say if I wanted to fly, they could make me equipment so that I can fly, and they would give me, other abilities as well. Huh. That's really interesting, kid. I like that power. You'll be joining my team as well. How old are you? I'm 11, sir. Steg would say, that's old enough. As he'd say, alright, let's go. As Deku would take the young boy back to, well, his training camp. As once they got there, they'd see the man. He'd be fighting another clone that the previous clone made for the man. As now Kira and the man that we still don't know the name of would, well, be training. As Deku would say, oh yeah, that's right. I still don't know the both of your names. Hey you. Huh. What's your name? As the young boy would say, my name? Yeah. It's RJ. RJ. Hey, Brute. What's your name? As Deku would have called him this because of the way that he punches and kicks the damn clone. As the man would say, my name's, well, that's something you don't need to know right now. As Deku would rush at the man, grabbing him by his collar and punching him directly in the stomach, making him almost damn near puke up blood. As he whispered in his ear, tell me, what's your name? My name's Spike, and I was an assassin until you recruited me. Oh, so we have an assassin on our team. A demon? Wait, what? You're a demon? Yeah, I am. We have a demon, a convict, an assassin, and a kid. That's definitely crazy. Well, guess that makes up my squad then. Now, all three of you. You'll be trained by, well, my clones. And, well, do your best. By the way, I'll be leaving. I have people to beat on. Plus, that'll count as my training. Huh? People to beat on? What is he talking about? As he'd look at Kira as she'd just shrug. Well, out of the time I've spent with him, he's been pretty weird. But that's none of my business. As Deku would have flown off again. As he'd be in the sky, just looking at the clouds move, thinking about Uraraka and how she cheated on him. As Deku's rage would start to build up, but he'd calm it down, seeing that, well, he doesn't really want to, destroy anything up here. Doesn't want to destroy the sky. But, yeah, he'd be thinking about Uraraka and Ida, his mom, and how she was just raped, and how Yue did him. He'd feel angry. He'd have hatred towards Yue, Ida, and even Uraraka. Even though Deku knew it was part of a curse, if the person knew it was a curse, the spell would be broken. Well, for that relationship. And the person would then have their own free will. And seeing that Ochako is dating Ida out of her own free will, well, it kinda pisses him off. As Deku would land on the ground after about an hour of just pondering and flying, as he would call, well, Izumi, as she'd be on the phone. Deku, well, yeah, what is it? I think you should go check on Mom. For what? Well, about 3 days ago, after I left, well, I killed a few people that were raping her. And they kinda messed up the house. Wait, what? They raped her? Yeah, and they were going to kill her. Good thing I got there, right? Yeah. You killed them? Yeah, I did. Oh, and tell Yue about it. they'll probably help her out, as there might be a few other people coming after her, seeing that, well, those may have been, well, gang members, seeing that the way they were dressed. Huh? Gang members? Yeah, they were dressed in like uniforms or something. I don't know. But just go check on her, see how she's doing. And don't forget to tell UA about it. Oh, and I gathered my team. They're training as we speak. Huh. It's good to hear. Hey, promise me you'll be careful while fighting them. You and Mom have said this now. I promise I'll be careful while fighting this bastard. Oh, and remember, I'm a demon as well. Don't sleep on me. Alright, whatever you say. As Izumi would hang up, as Deku would smile, as he'd think to himself, I'll get revenge. He won't fuck up my love life anymore. As Deku would be walking throughout a village, as Deku would see a girl about his age. She was fighting, and it looked like a bunch of people were gathering around to watch her fight. As Deku would join the group, as he could see that she was beating a man. Not just one, but three. 3 men. And she's doing it with nothing but her fingers. She's not even trying. Deku would try to sense her power level, but he couldn't. What is this? What is she? As he'd look at her eye, it'd have a weird mark in it. As Deku would come into the ring, as he'd say, you're pretty strong. I think I want to marry you. As everybody would hear this, including her, as she would turn around and kick Deku square in the head, sending him flying straight to the ground. Why would I want to marry somebody as weak as you? Look, you're knocked out. As Deku would get up and he'd rub his head and say, ow, what was that for? As the girl couldn't sense his power either. As Deku would say, yeah, that kick was kinda strong, but I feel like you could do better. As the girl would smile and say, oh yeah? Well then, how about this? If you beat me, I'll give you my hand in marriage. As Deku would smile, as he'd say, what if I lose? You have to be my slave. Slave? Wow, you're pretty weird. Yeah, I am, but you want to marry me, don't you? Yeah, I do. Seeing that, well, as he'd whisper this, you're just putting on a front for these people. As the girl would, well, smile and she'd say, how'd you know? Now I can feel it. The girl would start to fly up into the air as Deku would follow her. As she'd have pure white wings, as he'd have pure black wings. As Deku would rush at the girl, as he'd send a kick her way. As after he sent that kick, he'd send a flurry of punches. And she'd have blocked all of them, sending her own punch that would have nearly hit Deku, but Deku was just testing her, seeing how strong she was, as he's only been using 10% throughout his, well, entire life. As he says, I think it's time I finally use my real power. She says, real power? As the girl was only using about, I'd say, 20% of her power to block all of Deku's punches. As Deku would kick it up to 80%. As he'd go in for a punch. As the girl would try to block it, but he'd punch her arm. and it almost snapped, and she could feel it. As she'd scream out, this Deku would come to her side instantly. He'd say, "Oh shit, are you alright?" As she would say, "Yeah." As she backhanded Deku with her left hand, seeing that her right hand was damn near broken, as she sent Deku flying into, well, the water that they were over. As Deku would be sent deep into the water, as he'd get up. She's really strong. I might have to rethink only having 3 people. As Deku'd fly up, as he'd say, "You're different. You're not human, are you?" "No, I'm not. But neither are you." "Wait. Are you an angel?" "Yeah, I am. Why?" No, nothing. It's nothing." "What are you?" "I'll tell you once I marry you." And she'd smile and say, "Alright then." As Deku would rush at her as they began fighting, sending kicks and punches at each other, until, well, Deku would have eventually knocked her out, but it would have been a tough fight. Deku would have had cuts and bruises all over him. She had this attack that combined light energy and the sun together, and when she sent it at Deku, he thought he was gonna die. But for an instant, and I do mean an instant, the power of the Demon King, he could feel it. But it wasn't his father's, it was his own. As Deku had never felt anything like this. As his transformation, his body changed into a new transformation. As for that instant, Deku would have erased the entire blast that she sent. This being her strongest attack, she was confused on where it went. As Deku would have appeared behind her, as he'd have just tapped her on the head. As she'd have fell down, splashing into the water. And that's how she was knocked out. Deku would have gotten her out the water, as he'd have looked at her. And, well, he'd have healed her a bit, using his darkness. She'd have eventually woken up, as Deku would have said, "You're pretty strong. And, well, since I beat you, you kinda have to marry me now." As the girl would blush, as she'd look at Deku, as she could see his eyes. They were blue. As Deku would say, "Oh, and by the way, I'm a demon." As the girl would say, "It doesn't matter. Humans, demons, have come to accept all forms." As Deku would smile and he'd say, "Me too." As they would embrace in a kiss. As Deku would say, "I'm kissing her, and I don't even know her name yet." As the girl would have the same thoughts. As Deku would say, "Well, what's your name exactly?" "Well, you can call me Liz." As Meliodas inside of Deku's head would hear this, as he'd say, "Wait, what? Liz? She's alive?" As Deku would have said, "Huh. Well, my name's Izuku, but my name's also Meliodas." As Deku was just trying to see if this would trigger something in her. As Elizabeth inside of Liz's head would say, "Meliodas is alive?" As she'd look at Deku's appearance and she'd say, "That's right. That's him. That's literally him." As Liz would be sucked into the mindscape for an instant and she'd say, That's my Meliodas." As Deku would be sucked into the mindscape and he'd say, "That's my Liz." As they'd both be pulled out, and one last time they'd embrace in a kiss, as Elizabeth and Meliodas could see each other's spirits. As they would run to each other and they'd hug each other. And, well, they'd kiss each other, just as Deku and Liz are doing. As all four of them would break from their kisses, as they would look at one another, and they'd say, "We're gonna kill the Demon King." But this is where I'm gonna end this off. If you guys liked it, please like and subscribe. You already know what I'm saying. But yeah, bye.